Om Namah Shivaya. I'd like to talk a little bit about energy. In this talk, I'll talk about the different forms of energy, what energy is that we're speaking of, but also the different forms of energy, the physical, the emotional, the mental, pranic energy, what this is, and also the Kundalini energy. So to start with, I'd like to say that commonly we know energy is something that kind of powers our house, our cities, and it's generated by electric plants or hydro plants or this sort of thing. Yes, this is, of course, energy as is commonly known, but as well, when we move towards yoga, especially towards practices where we work with a energy of the individual and the energy of the cosmos, that we could say that it's energy, yes, but it's at a more subtle level. Another word for energy is as well life force, or we could also say in Taoist terminology that it's chi, that the chi is the same thing. And as well, we can talk about prana. Now, prana is just one aspect of our energy field. So we have physical energy, the energy that we get from eating food, energy that we get from drinking water. And each of these are a little bit more subtle. Energy that we get from breathing gives us the ability to move physically. And we can also feel that our energy depletes when we don't eat properly. But more than that, when we talk about the different variations of energy, it is understood that the energy of the cosmos, and this is understood in Tantra, is on all levels of our being, on all different levels of the universe. And as well, we can see this in quantum physics, that it's not like we are made of particles or we're made of energy itself. So how can there be physical form? In Tantra, it's known that there's more than just that one kind of energy, but that it's energy which becomes more and more subtle. That the physical body, yes, is having a certain kind of energy. That we have prana moving throughout, which is known as the life force, which we can actually help ourselves or others to heal. And this life force, we can direct it at others, especially when they're in the vicinity. And the prana, we can move to different places in the body. And this is very important within the practice of Kundalini Yoga, where we start to move the energy into different places. And as practitioners, not just theorists, we can start to feel these energies in different places. We can direct the energy into our hands if we wanted to, and we can start to feel energy pulsating from our hands, moving into our food, into a friend who's in need, or into whatever. It's less dense as the physical energy of movement, but it's more like a pulsing. Sometimes it feels like a heat. Sometimes it feels like a little bit of a vibration. And then the energy can get a little bit more subtle. And there's the energy of emotions, is that energy which creates emotions within our body. But it's more subtle than the other two. And we can see this take place. We can see this happening. And we can have an experience of this whenever we can feel the energy of others. We can feel the emotions of others, even though nothing has been stated, even though maybe the person is in another room. We can feel this, or we can feel at a distance even the emotions of others. And moving more subtly than that, we have the mental energy. This mental apparatus that we have works with that energy and gives us thoughts. So what happens when our energy becomes a little bit more stabilized? When the energy becomes focused? We can see with a light bulb, most light bulbs, the energy isn't focused, so the energy goes everywhere. But when that light becomes focused onto one point, then we would have like a laser. And this laser, even though it's much smaller than the light bulb, if you flash that into somebody's eyes, it can blind them. So the mind is similar when we become stabilized through different yogic and tantric practices. The mind becomes stabilized, then it becomes more of a laser-like effect, and the thoughts that are chaotic and this energy is all over the place, it becomes very focused and stabilized. And then we start to feel an equanimity within the body, within the mind and the emotions and all of it. Now, there's multiple ways in order to stabilize this energy. One way would be the simple act of focusing the mind. Another way would be to use especially an empowered mantra. The empowered mantra is like a little bit of energy that we've received from another person, and then that energy as a seed starts to work in us the more that we do this mantra, until eventually it becomes a mantra, essentially, of power, one that helps to change our energy field in order to stabilize that energy field. Quite often in this modern age, Kundalini is talked about, with the practice of Kundalini Yoga, that we just have to do some breathing exercises and then Kundalini rises or something like this. Okay, there's multiple ways that Kundalini can awaken. Kundalini can awaken through an extremely traumatic event, such as a car accident or something like this. But that's not very common, and also it's not very well understood either. The person who this has happened to, they might think that they're maybe going a little bit crazy because it's basically misunderstood. And then they start having therapy, and then the therapist tells them, oh, wow, well, we need a lot more appointments for you because this shouldn't be happening to you and all the rest. And the other way is through the touch or through the giving of mantra, especially one that's awakened it within themselves and has been empowered by their teacher, by their guru, in order to give such an energy. It's often done with mantra in India. The masters found that with mantra, it's not just a spiritual saying or something like this, not just a string of words brought together in order to help to focus the mind. But what the masters noticed was that there was a certain energy that could be transmitted from one to the other. And okay, the energy can be transmitted in other ways, like the touching of the forehead or very powerful masters staring into the eyes of another or looking into the eyes of the other. But mantra was a way that masters also weeded out the people who might not be so devoted towards understanding themselves. Using mantra takes some work too, and it comes in the form of a seed. And with this seed, then we grow it into a beautiful tree. And that tree, essentially, is the Kundalini. And Kundalini is a certain energy that becomes awakened. It's sometimes known as Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini Shakti because Shakti is the known manifested universe. Anything that we can think of, feel, see, touch, hear, anything that could be thought of or has ever been thought of, this is considered to be Shakti. So Kundalini actually is connected with this in the manifested. And Kundalini is the basic primordial energy that becomes awakened as we start to go deeper into spiritual practice. So we might ask, okay, well, in this case, does this mean that also Christians worked with Kundalini? They don't talk about that at all, or even maybe the Theravada Buddhists. They don't talk about Kundalini at all. Is it just something that is in Tantra, is in Yoga, is in Sanatana, Dharmic paths? I feel that it's in all traditions. It's just awakened differently. It's understood differently. So in India, especially the Tantrics, they're very practical. They call Tantra a science. They saw what was happening in their own body, and they thought, is there a way that I can awaken this for somebody else, rather than leaving the person off on their own to do their own thing, which can take a lot longer and is possible, I might add, to awaken Kundalini on one's own, even without a master, without an empowered mantra, and without a eye gaze or a touch or anything like this. But it takes a lot longer. So the masters were looking at how I've awakened this in me. What would be the most efficient way that I could awaken this in others? And mantra was one of the ways which could be awakened in others. But the person also has to work for it too. It's not like if you receive a mantra from an empowered teacher that it's going to happen overnight. For the most part, it will take time. It will take energy. It will take dedication and devotion. And so Kundalini actually, when it starts to awaken, because it is an energy after all, it's said to start to travel up the Sushumna Nadi, which is in the center of the spine. And there's some roadblocks along the way, but essentially it starts to move into the higher chakras. And when this happens, there's a complete shift and change in a person's psyche until eventually it reaches to Ajna chakra. A great tantric master can do this to to bring Kundalini to Ajna. The final step would be to bring Kundalini to Sahasra. Taking the example of the tree, the trunk of the tree is Sushumna Nadi. The roots are Muladhara in the base, and Ajna would be the first branch off of that, the main part of the tree. Then with Sahasra, then we have the branches, and it's infinite and all-knowing and eternal.